Cool. So yeah, welcome, folks. Thank you, Miriam, for getting this going. And then Bob, you are in the UK, is that right?
Israel.
Israel.
Ah.
Right on.
Hi, Miriam.
Gotcha. Cool.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Hi, Howard. How are you?
I'm getting a lot of echo on Bob's phone.
Okay. I've got an echoey room here.
Yeah, I think you're just in a live room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. I do think, I think one thing that might be helpful is if when you're not talking, you mute your microphone. There's a little button in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. That will just help, because if you're in a live room, it'll help cut some of the ambient noise down for the rest of us. Yeah. But yeah, welcome. We're figuring it out there.
I'm actually calling on a tablet, not a regular.
So
PC,
there should be
yeah,
there should be a little menu that comes up when you touch the screen. That there's like a video and an audio button.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Yeah.
I hope if I won't make noise. If it's too much noise, then I'll just.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it.
It's cool.
We'll get to. Wait. I'm getting somewhere. Okay. I've never used Zoom on this thing, so.
Yeah, it's the technology is always part of the equation.
And it always changes too, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
like after 3 months, it's different.
Yeah.
That's the fun part of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fun.
Great. Well, yeah. Again, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. And yeah, we're this started as a conversation between me and Median about just looping her into this kind of emerging network and digital collaboration that we're starting with the Jazz Journalists Association, helping support each other in covering our beat, and so we've been, obviously we had our tutorial calls in the evening US Eastern time, so that was not possible for folks who were wanting to tune in from Europe to or Europe and really anywhere from probably Spain to Siberia. It was the middle of the night, so
it was 2 p.m. In Madrid when you were talking about your things.
So we wanted to start experimenting with making some space for these to happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Whenever it needed to, and so there's I'm not coming in with much of an agenda for this call. I just really wanted to meet both of you and see if there's any way that I can support what you're doing, and that we can kind of get you into the loop of the network here, or if there's anything that you would like to invite sort of the rest of the group into in terms of conversation or a project. So maybe we can just start off by Miriam and Bob just introducing yourself a little bit, telling us a little bit about the work that you're doing. And
yes, of course. Well, this is Miriam Arbalejo. I live in Madrid, Spain. I've been writing about jazz for 17 years, something like that, yeah. Things have changed a lot in the jazz scene in Spain, but also in jazz journaling, but not in the same way. I think that this is maybe an issue, an interesting issue to discuss later, because I have a feeling that what is happening in Madrid is not the scenario we can find in Scandinavia or France or our colleagues can tell us too about this situation.
Okay, well, let's
And
hear
I
more
am
about.
very glad to say hi to you face to face.
Great, thank you.
I'm
Yeah, but
curious
did you-
about. I'm curious about what's changed, Marianne, but we can talk about that a little later, like you said.
Yeah, well,
About, no,
Yeah,
you want me to
interesting to
say
hear
that
from
now,
the-
or do we wait to?
let's circle back to that and let's meet Bob, and then we'll circle back to this this question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Bob Rosenbaum. I've been in. Can you hear me okay, Howard? Is it okay?
It's hard. I'm having a hard problem.
If
I
I
don't know
get
what'll work.
closer, it might be a little better.
A little bit.
Then I'm like in your face. So is it better?
Well, I don't mind you being close to me, but this close.
It's actually
Yeah.
better. Yes.
Just don't breathe.
It's a
Just don't
little,
breathe
yeah.
on you right now.
It's a little better. It's keep talking. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be my
Okay.
ears. I don't know.
Boy, really funny on my monitor here. So I've been working here. Actually, I've been working in the music since the really in the early 1980s, and put a lot of time in upstate New York. I was a radio host there for public radio station, and then ended up in California for public radio in Santa Monica, California, KCRW. Working there as a jazz host, a DJ, and host of interview programs. And that's a while ago. I ended up back in New York. I'm just giving you a little background so you understand how I ended up in Israel. Ended up in New York and working there in New York for about 5 years, but I was commuting back and forth to my day gig, which was in upstate New York. So I would spend time in New York and then back upstate. All this time doing most stuff I was doing was photography. That's really my shtick. Today I have a lot of experience with the radio programming, but in recent years I haven't done that. Ended up visiting Israel and haven't left in the early 90s, basically. So I've been here since the early 90s. And the scene here has changed also very dramatically. The growth here has been phenomenal. My role here is basically as a photographer. Most people don't know me as a writer or a radio personality or any of that stuff, although I've often wondered how that might happen here. My background is mainly in English, and the radio here that's produced in Hebrew. I speak Hebrew fluently, but the accent that I carry sort of prevents me from becoming any kind of radio person here. And actually, the English is an advantage because most of the musicians here, just to get to the meat of it, most of the musicians here really want to be speaking English. That's the language that they need in order to work in Europe, in New York. I mean, that's really apart from the music itself, that's the language. So, not at the price of any other language. I love Spanish, by the way. So my role today is mainly as a photographer, and I'm pretty deep into the community here, participating with a number of festivals. Not really, I never really took the role of organizer and concert promoter. That never did that for me. But I consider myself as someone who's really promoting connections. And I have a lot of connections also from, going back all the way, of course, to New York and LA, and I maintain those with Facebook and other channels. And this is, by the way, to wrap it up, very exciting to me, Alex, because I think this is really a great way to connect in real time with people who are doing things, really making things happen. Some are perhaps more, known things. Some are more things, some things that are just happening behind the scenes. And maybe when we talk a little bit about our respective scenes, I can give you a little bit of a taste of what Tel Aviv is like, what Jerusalem is like. You know, there's different scenes here as well. But I'll send the floor back to you, Al.
Great. Well, thanks so much for that little taste of where each of you are coming from. I'm in Western Massachusetts, rural part of the state of Massachusetts, about an hour and a half outside of Boston. And so there's a surprising, especially kind of like creative improvised music type stuff happening in this part of the world. You know, UMass in the 1980s was one of the kind of Afrocentric jazz studies experiments that had like,
who were there.
Yeah, like Archie Shepp and Yusef Lateef
Archie,
and Max Roach were all
J.R.
teaching out
Mitchell.
here. Yeah, exactly. So there's an interesting kind of
Good
legacy of that still is still alive out here that I'm kind of starting to plug back into. I moved back here pretty recently. I did my undergraduate years here and just recently moved back. So that's where I am. Anything you want to say about where you're at, Howard?
Well, I'm in Chicago, where I grew up, and I moved back here after living in New York for 32 years. So I moved back to Chicago 5 years ago. And I'm maintaining all the same activities that I've been doing for all this time. A little bit of radio stuff, and writing, freelancing, and also making connections. I work with the Jazz Institute of Chicago, among other things, which is a nonprofit with a large educational footprint in the city. I don't get involved in the educational element except by doing presentations at the library, the downtown cultural center, they call it now, which are like video presentations of classic Chicago musicians. And usually I will have a musician and another journalist on the panel. So we discuss, it's called Digging Our Roots, Chicago's Greatest Hits. So we did 8 of those last year, and we'll do, I think, 4 this year. And that's kind of fun. And it's similar to the teaching that I did in New York. I taught at New York University for a long time. So, but I'm principally a writer and a freelancer. And of course, the JJA, I think I became president of the JJA in 1994. And I would like to end that reign anytime now. So, but it's become a really enormous, it's an enormous job. It's not an enormous organization, but we do have about 200 members right now, and they are spread all over. And one of the problems that we've faced really from the 90s is this issue of how do we connect with people who are not in North America? And we tried numerous ways to do that. And always the time zone problem has been the challenge, the biggest challenge. So with this suite of applications that Alex has helped us set up and has been guiding us through, I'm hoping that we can have this network be a 24/7 network. Whenever you're awake, sign on and there's something to do here. And if there are organizing to be done in Europe or in Israel or in New Zealand or the Pacific Rim, or maybe we can facilitate that. And still, with the Zoom calls and with the instantaneous aspect of the Slack communications, maybe we can counter the distance and time problem to some extent. There are other issues for the Jazz Journalists Association about helping writers and photographers who are not in the U.S. or Canada. And those are specifically that I don't think we in the U.S. have the same journalistic issues necessarily as you do. Just in terms of the platforms that we can be writing or broadcasting or photographing for. But I want to hear about that. And Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not awake yet. In the past, I've written for Jazz Life and Swing Journal and a Finnish magazine and German magazines and The Wire, and Russian magazines. So we do have a lot of contacts all over, and we are united by this interest in the music. And I think we all have lots of interesting things to say about the music too. So that's all to be good. And the JJA is willing to help. And this platform that we've started is not specifically yet or exclusively a JJA possession. So it's open to people who are not members, is what I'm trying to say. And we do need to build membership, and we're going to have to figure out to some extent what the relationship is of the organization to these platforms. But for now, at the level of participation we have, I think it's okay to keep it kind of open and see how it develops and where it goes. I don't want the membership dues to be a impediment to anybody getting on these channels.
That's a good idea.
Right on. So yeah, maybe we could circle back now to just getting a sense from both Miriam and Bob, kind of what's happened on the ground where you are. Miriam, you mentioned that there's like kind of two different kinds of changes that were happening in the jazz journalism and jazz performance world, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, absolutely. Spain is like a big irony, you know, because we have these jazz musicians. They are gold. They are diamonds. They amaze me. The kind of level of jazz musician in my city, in my country, is amazing, and I feel very frustrated because sometimes, sometimes not, all the time, I don't know what to do to take them everywhere. I want everyone to listen to them because they are geniuses. You know, they are really. I'm sure you know some names of Spanish musicians, but I guess you don't know what is happening here, and I don't understand why these people is not in taking more place in newspapers or in broadcasting. It's frustrating for me as a writer, as a listener. That's what of the big ironies, and there is a big lack of support by institutions for jazz, because that's why I say this is a big irony, because we have these amazing musicians, but who is supporting them? It's like a miracle. I don't know what have I do, why we don't deserve them. No, yeah, really seriously, I would like to make them known, and I would love everybody to listen to them. That's one thing. And then there is one of the scenarios, no, the music itself. The other thing is the journalism, the media is the apocalypse. O sea, really, we have I suppose this is something global, no? We have this systemic problem with media where art doesn't have the place it needs and it deserves. I would like to know how is this problem there, but I can't tell you how is this problem here in Spain. Just critics, well, we have lost, sadly, some of them in the last 5 years. And the rest, they are either retiring or throwing the towel. It's a hard time to write about jazz. You know, it's like I remember Paul, la encuesta, Alex, la encuesta que hizo Howard.
¿Qué hizo quién?
The poll, la encuesta.
Oh, claro, the poll, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, the
About
poll.
what you...
Motivations poll.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is really a difference because writing in newspaper in print press is not a good idea for a jazz writer right now.
Because there are no publications that are publishing?
Less and less and less. We have very little space for art. So imagine jazz.
It's the same. It's the same here. Yeah. It is the same.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We have no more a jazz journalist hired by a newspaper. That is extinct in Spain.
There's only, in the States, there are maybe 2 full-time jazz writers in newspapers now.
Hired by a newspaper. So
it's gone everywhere.
It's all freelancers now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The one guy at the Chicago Tribune who was the jazz critic for years, when the classical critic left, they assigned him to cover classical music too.
Yeah,
so
that's another issue. I was a speaker in the last Madrid International Jazz Festival about jazz in the media with one of my favorite jazz writers. We are together in this event, you know, and this is
Hold on. I'm sorry, Miriam. I need to step off for just a second. I will be right back.
Go ahead. Okay. You can go ahead, Miriam.
Okay, but remember your poll, Howard. We are paid by our work there, you know.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If I go as a speaker, I am hired to do that.
You are hired to do that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we just in the media was the theme of the
the topic. Yeah.
we were really wondering if in Spain we are being witness about the last jazz critic.
Hmm.
Do you? I don't know if I made myself clear.
Well, is that going to be you? You're the last jazz critic in Spain?
That's what say my colleague said. Probably it's going to be me.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you, what are the audiences like?
Sorry.
What is the audience, the listeners? People come out to hear the music in Madrid.
Yes.
What age are they? Are they all men and women? Are they, is there a large audience?
There has been a big change because that's another thing I've been doing these last years. I have had meetings with festival directors, jazz festival directors. I just say my thing, and then, but I needed to do this, and I had meetings with some jazz directors, festival directors. So in Madrid was the first one because it's my city, and I thought this was very important because the there is this absolutely crazy idea. I don't know how this is there in the US. There is this ugly idea, from my point of view, relating jazz with something snob or elitistic, you know, and something.
Old story, old story.
Yes, so you feel me.
Yeah.
You feel me, and I suppose you don't see just like something like that, but a lot of readers no, not really just fans. The population feels like just that way, no, like something snob, something elitistic, and this has been a fight for me for years. I'm writing hard about this to change this idea. So that's one of the reasons I started meeting with festival jazz directors. The other one was because the programs, in my opinion, didn't reflect the versatility and the versatility of jazz, um, women in jazz, fusion, good fusion in jazz, new rhythms in jazz. What I see, I listen to about 1,000 albums every year. So if I see a poster, you know, a program, I know if this is. I'm sorry for the word. I know if this is bullshit about jazz. Do you understand? Well, I don't know. I'm not expressing myself very well. I'm sorry, but that was very important for me to express to jazz directors. No, the reality of jazz was not being. We need to show the reality.
What did they say to you? What was the response?
That's very interesting because for my the jazz festival, Madrid Jazz Festival, they know me. I've been covering and writing about this for years. They didn't answer me. And I felt very sad, but it was important to me, so I did the things in the formal with a formal model by the council, you know. So they had to have the meeting with me. That year, the director was a woman, and she had no idea about a lot of things I had been writing to them, because they didn't send them to her, you know. The next year, uh, the program was perfect. Was perfect. I was so proud of my city. They are working very good, very good. I am so happy, because really, Jazz Festival, Madrid Jazz Festival is, in my opinion, now one of the best in Europe. Others directors, well, they had some kind of curiosity, but no big changes. This next summer, I invited to Vitoria-Gasteiz Jazz Festival, International Jazz Festival, because they are they have changed the directive. The president is gone now. There are young people leading the festival in Vitoria-Gasteiz. It's one of the most important festivals in Europe, you know, and they are going to do. They showed me the program in secret some weeks ago, and again I felt, wow, very proud, because they are trying, and you know, the local, the women, the real jazz, and the local jazz. Our musicians, our amazing musicians are there too. No, you have Bram Formers, what jazz means to me. Well, I am happy to, because I had that meetings. I'm happy to have a communication. And this example feels to me very close to work the JJA are doing. When Alex wrote me, and I'm sorry, Alex, because I answered you a little late, but when I read what you was plotting here, I had great expectations, but this is better yet, because as Howard has said, if you are looking the big picture with just writers, just journalists from over the world, this can be so, we need this. That's my opinion. We need this, what you are doing here. I needed it, because I'm a little alone. In my country, I'm a little alone. So I'm sure that there is a lot of people like me. The sense of community. I love to know about you. I follow a lot of people who write Howard's blog and Ethan Iverson, or it doesn't matter who to me. I am avid to know about what you are doing and how are you are working, you know.
That's music to my ears.
Yeah, thanks so much, Miriam. Yeah, maybe we can hear a little bit from Bob now about kind of where you're
Thank you.
coming in and what might be
Thank you.
supportive for you.
Have you said
Right.
something about Barcelona?
I said, oh, no, so I said Bob now.
Ah, okay, Bob.
I have to apologize. My video has kicked out. I don't know why. And if I try to play with it, I'll probably lose the whole conversation.
That's all good. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm listening, and I can relate very well, Marianne, to what you're saying. The communities abroad, you know, outside of the United States, have very serious challenges because the one advantage, I think, in, you know, living and working in the States with the music is that it's undisputed that this music is a part of the United States, of you know, the growth and the development of the cultural scene in America. And in other countries, this music is often considered something imported, even when there is a very vibrant and by any standard valid local community which has been on this music. I know in Spain, for example, like in Italy, there's, you know, at least 3-4 generations of musicians who've been playing and are intimately familiar with all of our own great, you know, innovators, you know, I mean, going back to the 1920s, but still the music doesn't have that same standing. And so there's, it's difficult. And then of course you put on top of that the attitude toward the arts today, in terms of any kind of distribution of information, and it's a very difficult situation. My experience, I think, is a little different because I guess because I am an American and have the history and the knowledge that I have about the music scene in the States. So coming here, everything was totally new. And I just had to be a student. I had to learn it from scratch because there was nothing here. You know, I had some illusions or fantasies or whatever when I came here that I could somehow do what I did in the States here. You know, I brought my demo tapes and I brought articles, and I thought I would, I had a connection with, actually J.R. Mitchell connected me with a fellow, J.R. and I don't know if you knew J.R. Mitchell, Alex, but he and I were close friends. And he came through Amherst. He was one of Archie's cronies, and it kept Archie on his toes all the time. He was also with Walter Davis, played a lot with Walter Davis in Amherst, and he was actually out of Boston. He learned, in any case, JR connected me with some folks here at the National Radio, and I thought I would, pass along the demo tapes, and they would be interested. Here's an American bringing, a jazz view and some of that knowledge, perhaps, but they didn't value that at all, and they actually still don't value that. So the whole thing is about learning, which I've done, and I'm happy to say that over that period, which is 20 years or more, really, where I've really been active, the scene has evolved, and I want to just characterize the scene just a little bit, because it maybe has to do with what you're talking about, Miriam. The growth of the knowledge of the music here has gone way beyond anything that I experienced in the States. You know, the time I spent 30 some odd years in the States before coming here. So, meaning to say that it's really coming through the schools and the young people. And as I'm sure I know from my listening of, you know, the St. Andrew band you know, out of, I guess they're in Madrid, right? The St. Andrew band in Madrid, is that for the school? I guess what's it called? The St. Andrew Orchestra?
Sorry?
Mary, is it the St. Andrew band? It's called in Madrid.
Andrew Van.
St. Andrew.
There's a school that has a really good jazz orchestra,
Yeah.
like really high level jazz band that is like had some viral YouTube videos and stuff.
Amazing. They were here. You know, the director, whose name escapes me, is a marvelous guy. Bass player and saxophone player and a leader, and has done marvelous things with these kids. And I'm trying to compare it because we have also.
Sorry, Bob, you're telling me that they are in Madrid?
I'm not
Is it
sure
in
that they're
Madrid?
they're in Barcelona. They're in Barcelona.
Okay.
It could be. It could be. In any case, the schools here.
Van in Madrid. I have to tell.
It's okay.
I'm posting a Wikipedia link in the chat here if you want to look at it, Miriam.
Oh, it's worth looking at. Yeah, it's worth listening. It really is. And the program, by the way, it sounds to me like they really have quite a good approach in terms of their promoting the music.
Sorry, San Andreu Jazz Band.
Yeah.
Sorry, my Spanish.
They are way better big bands in Barcelona and in Madrid, but this is an important jazz band. Yes. You are talking about Joan Chamorro.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of how would I put it? Like the like Radio Formula in jazz, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like he's the establishment in.
It's like the Wynton Marsalis.
He's someone who sells a lot of albums.
Okay.
But
Well,
there are wonderful jazz bands in Madrid and Barcelona. Yes, totally true, Bob.
Yeah.
You know well what you are saying. Yes, sorry. Please continue.
Just as a comparison, we've got some schools here, whereas 20 years ago there was really only one school, and it was the Ramon School of Music. Today there's basically 3 different schools for jazz. And the level of playing is also amazing. The level of learning and the experience that these young people have. And now what's happened is it used to be that the young people, when they got to a certain age, would just go off to New York or to Europe. Some areas in Europe, Berlin is very popular to go to, and obviously Madrid also, and Italy is popular. Different cities, Paris. And that would be the way that they would learn more about the music and about the community and to make a name. And they still do that. But what's happened in the last 10 years is there is a real brewing community here, and young people, they don't have to leave the country anymore. They may, there's basically, they establish a name, they go abroad, but they come back and they're teaching. The degree schools now can support teachers who are musicians and full-time musicians who are also teaching, just like the model in the States. Yeah. So in many ways, it's grown and developed very beautifully, and the connection between people here is very strong. It's a very active, very valid, very productive Facebook community. among the Israeli jazz musicians, among the musicians and among the directors and some of the names. I'm not going to try to go through names, but I'm sure you'd be familiar with some of them because some of them are actually people who came through the state. So it's an interesting time. But to get to the subject of how it's promoted here, that's, as you mentioned, Marianne, that's a great irony because the level of promotion is outside of this community is very low, and very few people who are not connected to the community really know about what's happening. And you also have this elite sort of perspective that people look and they say, oh, well, it's only for certain people, but when you go to the concerts, and the concerts are very well attended here, concerts and clubs, there's a number of clubs now in the country that are worth going to. And when you go to these clubs and you go to the concerts, there's quite good attendance, and it's attendance by all ages. It's amazing. You have young people, you have older people, and you have people who are really just learning about the music one way or another. The influence of the jazz community here is very high also in terms of the popular music scene. They don't make hits, but they are usually playing together with some of the more popular musicians. Those are the musicians who are, I see them in the back, they're not necessarily the leaders in that community, but they're definitely established and they're called upon by that community. The result, even with all this interest and all the vibrance of the community, the result of the lack of promotion, though, is that it's sort of insular. It's still contained within itself, and in many ways, it's like the States too. It's sort of a community within itself, and it's hard to break that barrier, mainly because in Israel there's so few outlets. There's really only 2 radio outlets, for example. Well, I'm exaggerating. There's more today, but the main outlets are the national radio and the Army run radio, which is probably one of the coolest radio stations you'll ever hear. And that means that in terms of jazz programming, there's only two main outlets, and those 2, they are still into the mode of, let's play jazz after midnight. They never have as opposed to what happened in the States when I was coming up, they never really grabbed on the idea that jazz can be heard during the day. It's mainly, this is beginning to change because we're also getting some nice nightclubs, which are it's no longer just the smoky business with the drugs in the back quarter. It's they're nice clubs, and they're spreading a lot of good music. So the promotion is a big problem. And the other thing I think that's compounding the lack of also the newspapers, by the way, there's only 2 reporters in Israel that I know of, and I think that's not exaggerating, who are paid for writing jazz reviews. They're the same 2 writers for the last 30 years, basically. So, and that's not going to change because they're just like our prime minister. They're going to hold on until somebody just grab. They're going to stay on that job. They want that job, and they're going to keep it at every price. And they're nice people. They just want to keep their job. But it is limiting the ideas that are promoted, the music that's promoted, and just to try to cut to the chase somehow to make a point of all this is my goal has not been to try to break into the scene here because I don't see much worth for me to do that. Also, I don't write in Hebrew very well, so that and Hebrew is the language here. English is not very well. I mean, it's spoken, but people wouldn't read English reviews. I have a blog, for example, that I write English reviews of many of the things that are happening here, but the Israelis never read them. So the main thing for me is the outward facing. What in my my other hat is marketing. So outward-facing stuff, which is really toward the States. And so I've sort of given myself the goal of using my main skills, which are as a photographer today. I mean, that's really where my focus is today. Promoting to other locations, and by doing that, promoting the music and promoting the people and the names and connecting people. But as far as the journalistic, I haven't explored the journalistic aspect of, you know, jumping back into the community of writers in the States. I don't think I would, you know, because of the limitations of writing from Israel, I don't think it would be of a lot of interest, you know, an article about the Israeli jazz scene. I think, you know, there's one of those every 5 years it appears in Downbeat, and that's enough, you know. So I don't have any goals in that direction, but I do have the goal of sort of becoming maybe, and helping perhaps the JJA could help. And one of the things that's exciting about doing what we're doing right now is there are some aspects where I'm trying to say, well, you know, if there was a little bit more circulation of with other writers and other people who don't know about the scene here and don't know about the type of community we have, just a little bit more, it could really perhaps add some energy. And of course, the exchange might also be worthwhile for the community, you know, for people going to the States and coming here. There's never enough, obviously, coming here. There's always a limitation because it's such a small country. But we do have our festivals. There's a few festivals, and we do have that exchange. There's some nice, exciting things happening that way. But that's another conversation, and so I'll leave it there.
Where do you publish your photos, Bob?
Well, mainly I stopped trying to get published because they would never pay me, you know. So I just publish them myself. I'm working, you know, with a blog. I do exhibitions. Every now and then someone uses photographs, you know, musicians use the photographs, or a CD or something like that. Mainly you know, I'm also in an advanced state of my career. So I'm mainly trying to get my stuff together. I've got a catalog, which, you know, I've got a website, which is, you know, pretty much a story, you know, story of promoting the jazz, not just in in Israel, but also in the States. And so mainly that's my outlet, you know, working on a book, you know, the whole thing like that. But that's my focus at the moment, I think. There's so much photography out there on the web today, and it's so easy to find photographs of whoever that, you know, if you're looking for another shot of Dizzy Gillespie, you know, no problem. Go to Getty. You got some great shots of Dizzy. They're not going to pay me, you know, when they can just go to Getty and get for $30, you know.
Will you put your blog address in the chat, will you please?
Okay. I'm not sure if I can get to the chat at the moment, but I will. It's just.
Alex did it.
I Googled you while you were talking.
Oh, here. Oh, Alex, you're a great promoter. Thank you.
Marianne, where are you publishing?
Sorry?
Well, now my last text actually was liner notes, writing liner notes and some digital magazines. Well, I took a time this last year and I just finished 2 books. So I'm looking forward to publish 2 books, a novel and an essay this year.
You have a publisher?
I'm looking for a publisher. Yes, I finished one of them yesterday. That's why I feel like a little tired today. And the other one I'm editing, so I'm ready to go. But otherwise, yeah, some things the leader notes, magazines. I have to say that I say no a lot of time. A lot of times I say no because sometimes I don't feel. I feel there is no dignity in what they are offering me for my job. I also have to say that.
Yeah.
It's something that I had to take a resolution, and sometimes I say no.
Well, that's fair. You know, the thing that
So
strikes me.
sorry to interrupt, Howard.
Go ahead.
I actually need to hop off the call at this point.
Go ahead.
So
Alex.
Miriam, why don't sigamos en contacto en español y vamos a buscar sí, otro momento para hablar un poco más en español para sí y seguir con todo eso. Pero sí, Howard, I think you should also be able to just end the meeting for everyone when y'all are done.
That's one thing that I forgot to tell very quick to Howard about the public.